Hi there. I got a frog in my throat. Thank you for joining me this morning. I'm Heather Hundhausen, and I'm going to be talking about the fear of intimacy, why so many relationships fail. When we have a fear of intimacy, it makes sense that our relationships wouldn't go so well. Um, so today we're going to be looking at this will make sense if you're one of those people who you're always looking for that special relationship, but you just can't find it. You want a relationship where you feel loved and seen and honored and respected, but you just can't seem to get that. You may spend countless hours dreaming of Mr. Right, yet you find yourself alone or you find yourself in serial relationships. I can relate to that. I have absolutely done both of those things. Hang on, let me just fix my screen here. Okay. Do you ever wonder why it seems to be going so well, but then all of a sudden it explodes unexpectedly in your face? Have you ever been in a relationship like that? Good morning. Thanks for joining me. So trust me, I know all about this. I have done this in relationship. Hang on, I got smoothie in my teeth. I have this mint green tea. I love it. And my girlfriend had um, a Thai green tea recently, which is where they put the sweetened condensed milk in the tea. So I did that this weekend with the green tea. Good morning. And I also did it this weekend with the jasmine green tea. Oh my gosh, it's addicting. All right, so let's get into, are we having serial relationships, or are our relationships blowing up in our face, and why do we keep finding ourselves being lonely again and again? So like I said, I know all about this. I have done it again and again and again, and I've been trying to figure out relationships since I was 8 years old, and my dad sat me down at the breakfast table at Layton's. It was this little breakfast place that we used to go to all the time when I was a kid on Sunday mornings. It was my mom's time to be alone. I would sit with my dad at breakfast, and he sat me down and he said, help me figure out my marriage with your mother. I was 8, and I was like, oh boy, it's my job to help my daddy figure out how to make my mommy happy. So that's where my codependency began. And I've been trying to figure out how relationships work ever since then. So you can already see the kind of relationship that I had with my dad, where he was sort of dependent on me, even though I was a child. And my mom had a bunch of addictions. So dad was the classic codependent and mom was the classic addict. And so dad would try to control and suffocate her. And then of course she would withdraw, or she would numb out, or she would try to get away. And it kept him hot on her trail. You know what I mean? He was after her. He was actually addicted to trying to get love from her. And so she was dependent on him. And I think probably at some level she really liked all that attention she was getting from him and all the love that she, when he's pursuing her, she's like, ooh, at least he loves me. So he tried in every way he could to control and manipulate her into loving him. And as you can see, that is never going to work. But luckily, that was my model for relationship. And so I've been trying to reprogram that, for 42 years. And I've been trying to figure out what is a healthy model for relationships. And I've literally been studying it since I was 8 years old. All the coursework I did for my master's degree in mental health was the marriage and family track, because I was literally dying to know how to make relationships healthy. Can anybody who's with me relate to that? Okay, so let's really get into the pain of fear of intimacy. So when you're not in a healthy relationship, it hurts so bad. It literally feels like you're trying to control something or somebody's trying to control you, and both of those feelings are terrible. Usually we have a pretty hard time seeing when we're the one gripping and trying to control things. That's what coaching is really good for, to wake yourself up to that kind of awareness. A lot of my coaching clients are set free, and the moment that they realize they're actually the one causing a lot of the pain in the relationship, and then I guess it has us ask the question, why would we do that? Why would we want to hurt somebody in a relationship? Why would we try to hurt someone or control someone or manipulate someone. Um, so I think the answer to why we try to hurt somebody else is because there's a lack of self-love. So it's actually our own insecurity, that our own lack of love of ourself that prevents us from wanting to be close to somebody else. Is that making sense? So think about it. If you think you're a piece of crap, um, but you're pretty good at putting on the mask that makes it look like you have it all together, like, oh, I'm so great and I'm so smart and I'm successful and blah, blah, blah. But really inside you feel like a piece of crap. It would make sense that you'd probably be afraid of somebody getting too close to you, because then they would find out that you're a fraud, right? So we don't want anybody to know that we're a fraud, and so we don't want anybody to get close to us. Also, imagine if you think you're a piece of crap and someone loves you anyway, you might think that they're stupid and crazy for loving you, right? Like if I really think that I'm worthless inside, but I'm putting this whole act on about, hey, I'm so awesome, then you really see me and you start to see the crappy stuff. If I'm judging myself so much and I feel insecure about myself and you see that and you still love me, you might be like, I might think you're stupid and crazy for loving someone like me who's so broken and awful and terrible, whatever, all those negative thoughts that I could possibly have about myself. Good morning. I'm so glad you're here with me. So why would somebody love a piece of crap, right? Like that's, if you actually think you're a piece of crap, that you start asking yourself that, you're like, you start to get like a little wary about that other person. You're like, oh, you know, you're not very smart if you love me, because I don't love me. I'm not very lovable. And, you know, you're crazy if you think that there's something here for you. And so then we actually do this thing where we push other people away. We're going to get into that in just a minute. So, you know, you don't want to be with somebody who's stupid and blind, right? So subconsciously you start telling yourself that they're not right for you. And what really sucks is that we're missing out on love. So another example is a person who thinks they aren't worthy of love. You know, and not thinking that you're worthy of love comes from your childhood. So here's an example of insecurity. Okay, I'm going to use the example of my own childhood. So I already told you the example of the model that my parents were, right? Where my dad would chase my mom and my mom would withdraw. But this is how I was raised. So this is how my experience of childhood, this is how they raised Heather. Two things in particular really stand out to me when we're talking about the fear of intimacy. One was I was conditionally loved. Thank you for the heart. I was conditionally loved, right? So it's like, if you do good, if you achieve, if you get A's, if you perform, if you act right in public, then I'll love you, right? That's not very nice. That it's not unconditional love. It's not like, oh, even if you are a big, huge mess, I'll love you. No, I was not allowed to be a big, huge mess. I had to be perfect, and then I was loved. So if I was good, or if I was right, or if I did the right thing, you know, and this actually gets me into a lot of trouble with Mike, even to this point in my life. You know, this is still stuff that I'm working on. You know, he could say something as simple as, Heather, do the dishes, and what I hear is, Heather, you're doing it wrong. You know, like that old running tape is still in there. It's still saying, you know, if you don't do it right, I won't love you. So it's like, oh my God, if I don't do the dishes right, he's gonna leave me. And we're gonna get into abandonment in a minute. And then the second thing was, in my childhood, they literally said things like, you need to hold it all together. You need to hold it together. You know, I would literally get punished for being a child, for like singing and dancing and what they called being annoying. You know, Heather, you're being so annoying. Go to your room for being annoying. Like I literally got punished for being my fully self-expressed self, which is why, you know, obviously why I coach women into their beautifully authentic, fully self-expressed selves, because that was my journey. You know, I was told, hold it all together, shove it all in. And so when you hold it all together, and you're trying to be good and right, and you're literally trying to be someone other than you, it is exhausting. This takes a lot of energy. And I mean, I'm still guilty. I'm still guilty of it. I still do it, not as often as I used to, but you know, I feel like I'm lucky now because I have a partner who will be like, hey, you know, you get to be a little easy on yourself. You're being a little hard on yourself. So it's nice because it's, you know, that reminder. So let's get into, in the fear of intimacy, we've got two major pieces, right? We've got abandonment and engulfment. So the reason that we fear intimacy is because we're either afraid that when somebody meets us and finds us and gets to know us and loves us, that they'll leave us, or when they find us and they like us, that they'll swallow us whole and we'll lose ourselves. Does it make sense? So these are the two things that have you be really afraid of intimacy. And a lot of times you'll have both going on at the same time. Like you don't want to be abandoned, but you don't want to be swallowed and lose yourself. And it can be really tricky. So engulfment is exactly what it sounds like. So one of my coaches actually explained it to me like this, because I have been engulfed and I allow myself to be engulfed. And I actually really like being engulfed until I don't. I'll give you a perfect metaphor. So this was a metaphor that my coach gave me and I love it. So he said, it's like going scuba diving without an air tank, right? So it's so freaking beautiful. All the coral and the beautiful fishies and everything's so amazing. And it's like this whole world that you've never been in and you're totally saturated, right? And you're like at the bottom of the, I mean, it's so beautiful and it's so amazing and it's things you've never experienced or seen before. It's so awesome. And then all of a sudden you're like, I can't breathe. Literally, that's what it feels like. And it's like, you know, and you're literally paddling to get to the surface. And instead of coming to the surface and taking a breath like a normal person would take a breath, go down, kind of visit things, come back up, take another breath, go back down, you get so scared that you're going to die and lose your breath that instead of just coming to the surface, you actually get out. And you look at that thing, just really, you know, the metaphor for the boyfriend. You look at that thing and you go, I'm never going back in there again because I'm going to get lost and I'm going to die. And that's what engulfment feels like. It feels so good when you're getting that love that you've always wanted. Somebody's just like swallowing you up, you know, that feels so amazing. But then you realize you've completely lost yourself and then you can't breathe and you go screaming for air or you go screaming for space and you're like, I need my space. You know, I do that. I still do that. I'm guilty of that. And then you start, you know, to like back out of the relationship and your mind will literally come up with hundreds of reasons why this guy is just no good for you, and why you should get out right now and don't get back in, right? Don't get back in that water because you will drown, you will die, you will suffocate, and you will lose yourself, right? So that's engulfment. Is that making sense? So then, of course, when you do the engulfment bit, you got to go tell the story to everybody else. Like you call your mother and you tell her that's a terrible idea. Don't call your mother and tell her anything. She's the one who raised you to be like this. She's going to be in cahoots with your nasty little story that you got going on in your mind that's trying, you know, it's all very unhealthy. So call your coach, call your therapist. So, right. So, and the reality is, you know, I'm the one who went swimming too deep. I'm the one who decided not to take an air tank. I'm the one who decided not to take a breath. Even though I make it look like he's the bad guy and he's the one who controlled me and swallowed me and all of this stuff, that's actually not true. I'm the one who decided to lose myself and all of that. So, you know, and this happens when you're not loving yourself or when you're not taking care of yourself. And I, you know, I like the way it feels to like completely surrender myself into someone else loving me and taking care of me, because then I can be lazy and I don't have to do any of that for myself. But this is so dangerous, right? This is like, I have learned this is super, super dangerous. You do not want to give yourself up. You do not want to depend on somebody else to love you or take care of you. You know, even if it's to be loved or for the pleasure, you know, you'll end up losing yourself and then you'll end up getting scared and probably pushing the person away and probably causing some pretty serious damage that can really hurt the relationship. Okay, so on the other side of engulfment, we have abandonment. So abandonment sounds clear, right? Somebody left me. I was abandoned, but it's not always so clear. It's not always so black and white. You know, it's possible that an actual parent left a child in childhood. Like, my mom left and moved to California and never called me again. Okay, that's clearly physical abandonment. That's clear. Or my mom died. Okay, that's abandonment. Very, very clear. Those things are clear. It could also mean your parent was working 80 hours a week and you got abandoned or left or neglected, you know, with the nanny or the babysitter or whatever, especially if this was somebody who wasn't really there for you. And really, there's nothing like a mother, right? So that totally sucks. And then also there's emotional abandonment, which is different from the physical abandonment. And this is where it gets a little bit unclear for people. They don't understand. My mother was always home. She was home with us every single day. I don't know how I could possibly have fear of abandonment. So most people's abandonment wounds are stemming from childhood, and emotional abandonment could be really as simple as my mom never hugged me. I actually found out that that was true for my dad. I remember him telling me, he did a personal development class with my sister, and I remember him telling us, oh, that instructor reminded me of my mom, and when she gave me a hug, I thought to myself, wow, this is the first hug I've ever gotten from my mom. So, you know, it starts to make a little bit of sense why Heather's dad chased Heather's mom so hardcore for love, right? Like he just wanted to get some hugs from his mom, and he never did. You know, and so if his mom didn't hug him, he's obviously going looking for love, right? So abandonment could also mean my parent is right in the room with me. Like she could literally be sitting right there. But maybe she's intoxicated, or maybe she's so narcissistic and she's dealing with her own problems and she can't see you, the child, or your problems. You know, as a child, this is incredibly wounding. As parents, we don't realize it's incredibly wounding, but as children, we know it's incredibly wounding. If you think back to your own childhood and you had a parent sitting in the room with you who was either intoxicated or completely, you know, full of anxiety, full of worry, depressed, stressed out, overwhelmed, numb, whatever, they're dealing with their own drama. You're sitting in front of them and they don't see you. Like it's very abandoning, and it's very, very wounding. So I don't know what my notes say, something about the child who's frequently abandoned emotionally or physically, but I didn't finish my note. Okay, so let's move into what do we do about all of this, right? So I have a fear of intimacy. I have a fear of either being abandoned, or I have a fear of being engulfed. And I don't want to be abandoned. I don't want to be engulfed. I don't want to lose myself in the relationship. I don't want you to run away from me. God forbid you actually see me, because if you saw me, you would realize that I'm a big mess and you shouldn't be with me anyway. And then if you stay with me, you're stupid. So, you know, I'm going to start pushing you away. I'm going to pull you back in because I want you to love me. Then I'm going to push you away because you're stupid for loving me. And does it start to make sense? Yes, we're getting the thumbs up. Everybody can relate to this. So what do we do, right? What's the solution? What's the answer? What do we do when we have this fear of intimacy? Because really what's happening is we're missing out on experiencing love. Fear of intimacy is about our own insecurity inside of us. Because when we feel secure and we love ourselves, then we're able to receive love. Does it make sense? So when you're insecure, unwavering, you know, your integrity is all over the place, you don't like yourself very much, it's very, very hard to be in relationship with someone else, because that's a lot of shame to deal with, and you don't want somebody else to see that, because God forbid, you know, you're horrible and terrible and bad and wrong, you know, which is what shame is all about. It doesn't make sense that somebody would love you like that. And if they did, right, there's something wrong with them. So what do we do about this? So my answer, as usual, is open your heart. You know, we want to connect down into the body, which if you've been following along with my work-life balance buckets, I have this theory that I've created where you have these buckets of yourself and then these buckets with others. And so really, how do I get over my fear of intimacy? It's by filling my own buckets. So I'm looking inside my body. What does it feel like? Oh, what's my heart doing? Oh, gosh, it's really shut down. Oh, I have this pain in my back. Oh, I have this pain in my hip. I'm afraid to move forward. I'm afraid, blah, blah, blah. Right? So we actually start talking with our own body, and we figure out what's going on in the moment, in my body, in my feelings, not in the monkey mind, not in the crazy brain. This crazy brain will make you crazy. It's really not very helpful unless you're doing math. You know, like facts and figures and that kind of thing is great. But, you know, in the moment, I want to drop down into myself. What's going on for me? So that's bucket number one, becoming aware of what's going on for me, my emotions, my feelings, my body, my physical form. We're going to skip number 2, which is the monkey mind stuff. We're going to move to number 3. Bucket number 3 is self-love. When I learn to love myself, then I can accept and receive love from others, and I can give love to others, which is also a form of receiving. Number 4, making a practice of loving myself and filling up my own cup. Like I said, if I'm going to go swimming and I'm going to get engulfed, that's because I don't want to take care of myself and I don't want to love myself. I want you to do it for me. That's dependency, and it's dangerous, and you will always end up getting hurt that way, I promise. No other person is ever going to take care of you the way that you can take care of you. And all of that stuff comes from that neglect and abandonment and all that stuff in childhood where, I wasn't taken care of in childhood, or I wasn't seen, or I wasn't validated, or whatever. I'm looking for somebody. I'm looking for my parent to validate me, but my parent is never going to come. It's never going to happen. So stop doing that. Give it to yourself, okay? So that's number 4, making a practice. And of course, number 5 is the boundaries, establishing my own sense of self-worth, that I have enough value to actually stand up for myself. Because if I have boundaries and I can stand up for myself, I can say, I would really love to jump in the deep end with you without an air tank. I really would love to do that. It feels so good, but then I can't breathe. So guess what? No, I love you, and I'm not going to do that. I need my space. I can't, it's too threatening for me, whatever. You need to be able to have those boundaries and hold those boundaries and love yourself and feel valuable enough that you can say, no, I don't want to jump and dive into the deep end with you. And actually, when you love yourself enough, you don't need to jump into the deep end with somebody else, because you're not dependent. You're not depending on somebody else to make you feel whole anymore. Okay, so that's it. It's pretty simple, right? We're going to just open our heart. How do we open our heart? We let go. How do we let go? You just make a choice. You make a choice to love. You make a choice you choose love. You make a choice to love yourself. You make a choice to take care of yourself. If you don't know how to do that, reach out to me for coaching. That's what I'm here for. That's my mission in the world. I want everyone, because when you have these 5 buckets filled up and you love yourself and you're taking care of yourself and you're feeling into your own body and you feel worthy and you have your boundaries, then you can start moving over here into relationships, and you can start parenting in a healthy way. You can start having a healthy relationship. That's where we are today, is the fear of intimacy is what's happening in my interpersonal relationships with my lover, or even sometimes with other people, right? I don't want to be seen. That could happen at work or at other places. And we move into the bucket of what our relationships look like at work. Then we start moving into what's my relationship look like with my spirituality, the divine creator. And then finally, what's my purpose, and how do I actually start living into my purpose? And it's really been amazing to watch the women that I work with, and even some of the men I work with. You get these 5 internal buckets filled up, and all of this sort of just starts panning out. And what's cool is I can work with people on these little tweaks. And this stuff like fear of intimacy, for example, that's a little tweak. It's a tiny little tweak once this is established. Does that make sense? Handling fear of intimacy on its own without handling all of this is almost impossible, right? So that's what we need coaching for. So if you're ready, if you're wanting to let go of your fear of intimacy, you're wanting to have a deep, connected, intimate relationship with somebody, you're wanting to be able to be seen even if you do feel like shit, and it's okay, contact me, right? If you're wanting to be able to jump in, dive in, and be part of this whole intimacy thing without losing your breath, without pushing him away because he must be crazy for loving you, come and work with me. Because what's really cool is to know that I've had this whole history, this whole childhood of all of it. I mean, just the codependency and addict cycle, the abandonment, neglect cycle, the I only love you conditionally, like all of that stuff. And to be able to have worked through it and have a healthy relationship with somebody that hey, sometimes I'm engulfing him and sometimes he's engulfing me, and sometimes I'm abandoning him and sometimes he's abandoning me. And we're at the point now where we can say like, hey, when you do that, I feel abandoned. And the other one goes, okay, I love you. Do you want me to hold you? Because I can't fix his abandonment wounds. I can only just be there with him, and vice versa. I can cry and say, oh, my feelings were hurt. And he's like, okay, I love you. And, not to take it personally, and just to know that, hey, this is just a person working through their stuff. and I'm willing and able to be here with you. And that's a really cool thing to get to that point. It's, you know, all that crap from my childhood, it's not going anywhere. It's just a matter of me accepting and loving myself enough to be able to take the mask off and say, oh crap, like this is the reality. There's a lot of crap here. And wow, there, you know, there it is. And now what am I going to do with it? And look, baby, I got a lot of crap here. What are you going to do with it? You know, and to be able to share all of that, right? Because before, what it looked like was, oh my God, this is too scary. You're too close. Get out of here. And so then I would push far away, and then the person would get hurt. I mean, and before, you know, 20 years ago, I would go from relationship to relationship to relationship to, you know what I mean? Trying to find somebody who would fit. But that's impossible. You can't find somebody to fit. The only person that you can find to fit is inside. You know, and I still battle the question of who am I, because I spent so many years holding it all together and trying to be somebody for these people, these codependent people who were asking me to be somebody that I wasn't, you know. So I'm still struggling with who am I, but it's beautiful now. It's a beautiful discovery, and it's wonderful. And even though there's days when it's really sad, that's okay. You know, that's part of the process. So that's my spiel on fear of intimacy. And you got to hear all kinds of stories about me, personal stories. Does anybody have anything that they want to share, or does anybody have any questions? I got a couple people here with me. I'm gonna take a little sip of my tea. Oh man, I love green tea. So for those of you who don't know, I was like really badly addicted to coffee. It was like swelling my lymph nodes up. It was really bad. So I had to switch to tea, and now I love the green tea. The green tea is amazing. It's a wonderful little caffeine you know, insertion without all of the crazy of the coffee. I don't know why coffee makes me so crazy, but some people can drink coffee and they're just fine. I'm finding a lot of my friends are, I say, being intimacy on. I say being intimacy on. Nestor, what's up? I don't know what that means. I say being intimacy on. Oh, bring, you're probably saying bring intimacy on. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, and I can imagine that you don't really have a problem with intimacy. You've been married a very long time, you know? So it's awesome, especially when you're in sync with your partner. Yeah, and you're just joining us here at the end. So we were actually talking about the fear of intimacy being, I'm afraid that I'm going to get abandoned, or I'm afraid that I'm going to get engulfed and lose myself. And because of that, I push my partner away. Yeah, 20 years in November. Congratulations. Yeah, you guys are awesome. One of my role models for sure. So lucky to have people like you guys in my life. And what's been amazing for me for watching you guys in particular has been watching you really just be a witness of your wife's process. No matter how painful it was for you, you just sort of watched her have her process, and you just held space for her, and you never gave up on her. It's gonna make me cry. But you never, like, I mean, I'm sure like you expected things of her, you wished things of her, but I don't think you ever put any pressure on her. And I think that's what's been so beautiful. And I think it's actually what's been, you know, what's had you guys, you know, become close together. So yeah. All right. I love you guys. Thanks for being here with me. And this is going to go into the blog. So if you want to share this with anybody, if you know anybody who has fear of intimacy, or anybody who does serial relationships, or anybody who complains of being lonely, or anybody who ends up in abusive relationships, pass this information on to them so that they can get educated. Yeah, always at her pace. Yeah, that's what I mean. Nestor, you've always gone at her pace. It's been so awesome to watch. So yeah, if you have any friends that want to, you know, could use this information, or if you could use this information personally, you know, don't be afraid to reach out to me. I'm here. You can book a breakthrough session with me. We'll talk about what's going on for you. And let's get you feeling awesome and connected in your relationships. All right. See you guys next week.